Some SpongeBob scenes weren't censored. They were erased before you ever had a chance to see them. You've seen banned episodes. You've seen edited scenes. You've seen content pulled from reruns. But there's another category of SpongeBob content that's even rarer. Scenes that were animated, voiced, and fully produced, then cut before the episode ever aired. These aren't mistakes, they're deliberate deletions, and most of them were removed for reasons Nickelodeon will never publicly admit. Here's how SpongeBob episodes are made. Writers create scripts, storyboard artists draw scenes, animators bring them to life, voice actors record dialogue, editors assemble everything, but somewhere between production and broadcast, there's a final review. Network executives, standards and practices teams, sometimes even test audiences. They watch the finished episode. And if something doesn't work, if a joke lands wrong, if a scene feels too dark, if the timing is off, they cut it. Not from reruns, from the original broadcast. These cuts happen late in production. The scenes are already finished. Money has been spent. Work has been done. But the decision is made. This cannot air. Sometimes the cuts are minor. A line of dialogue, a few seconds of animation, easy to miss. But other times, entire sequences are removed, plot points are deleted, jokes are erased, and the episode is restructured to pretend they never existed. And for years, nobody knew these scenes were missing, until leaks started happening. Let's start with the most infamous example, the original ending of SpongeBob's Last Stand. SpongeBob's Last Stand is a Season 7 special about a highway being built through jellyfish fields. SpongeBob and Patrick lead a protest to stop it. In the version that aired, the special ends with the highway being rerouted. Jellyfish Fields is saved. Everyone celebrates. Happy ending. But that's not how it was supposed to end. In the original storyboards, which leaked online years later, the ending was completely different. The highway was not rerouted, it was built straight through jellyfish fields. The jellyfish were forced to relocate. SpongeBob and Patrick's protest failed.
I lost jellyfish fields.
The final scene showed SpongeBob standing in front of the destroyed field, realizing that sometimes, no matter how hard you fight, you lose. It was a darker, more realistic ending. A message about how activism doesn't always work. How corporations and governments sometimes win, even when they're wrong. And Nickelodeon cut it. Why? Because it was too depressing for a kids' show. Because it didn't have a happy resolution. Because teaching kids that protests can fail felt too cynical. So they reanimated the ending, rewrote the script, gave it the uplifting conclusion that aired. And the original ending? It only exists in leaked storyboards. It was never animated, it was never voiced, it was erased before production was finalized. Then there's The Sponge Who Could Fly. This Season 3 episode is a fan favorite, but it almost had a completely different opening. In early drafts, the episode was supposed to start with SpongeBob watching a nature documentary about flying fish. The narrator explains that some fish can glide above water using their fins. SpongeBob becomes obsessed with the idea and decides he wants to fly too. But the documentary footage? It was supposed to be live action, real fish, real ocean footage, just like the original pilot's scrapped opening. Nickelodeon rejected it immediately. They'd already learned from the pilot that kids don't respond well to live action openings in SpongeBob. It breaks the cartoon logic, it confuses the tone, so the live action footage was scrapped. The opening was rewritten as SpongeBob just daydreaming about flying. The entire documentary concept was removed, and most fans have no idea it was ever planned. But the most disturbing deleted scene comes from Coarse Meal. Coarse Meal, Season 7, Episode 11, is already controversial. It's about Mr. Krabs discovering that Plankton is afraid of whales, so he torments him by dressing up as Pearl and scaring him repeatedly. Plankton becomes so terrified that he becomes suicidal. He lies down in the middle of the road, waiting to be run over. The scene is dark, uncomfortable, and it aired, but there was originally more. In the storyboards, there's a deleted scene where Plankton writes a suicide note. He's shown sitting at his desk, writing a letter to Karen, saying goodbye. The scene was fully storyboarded, dialogue was written, but it was cut before animation began. Why? because even Nickelodeon realized that showing a character actively planning suicide, not just being in despair, but writing a note, was too far. The episode still implies Plankton is suicidal, but the explicit depiction of him preparing to end his life? That was erased. Nickelodeon doesn't talk about deleted scenes. When fans ask about cut content, the network stays silent. When storyboards leak online, they don't comment. When former animators mention deleted material in interviews, Nickelodeon never confirms or denies, because admitting these scenes existed would raise uncomfortable questions. Why were they created in the first place? Why did they get so far into production before being cut? Who approved them initially? And more importantly, how many other scenes were deleted that we don't know about? The answer is a lot. Every SpongeBob episode goes through revisions. Scenes are trimmed for time, jokes are replaced, dialogue is rewritten. But the scenes we're talking about aren't normal edits. These are full sequences removed because they crossed lines that shouldn't have been approached in the first place. And Nickelodeon's strategy is simple. Don't acknowledge them. Let them fade into obscurity. Hope that fans forget, but the internet doesn't forget. Storyboard artists have shared deleted material. Voice actors have mentioned cut lines in interviews. Animators have posted early drafts online. And piece by piece, fans have reconstructed what SpongeBob could have been if these scenes had aired. Today, deleted SpongeBob scenes are collector's items. Storyboards sell for hundreds of dollars on auction sites. Production sketches are framed and displayed. Leaked animatics are archived and preserved, because these aren't just cut content. They're glimpses into creative decisions that were walked back. Evidence of how close SpongeBob came to being much darker, weirder, and more controversial than it already is. And the debate continues. Should these scenes have been cut? Some fans argue yes. That Nickelodeon made the right call. That a suicide note in a kid's show is inexcusable. That dark endings don't belong in SpongeBob. Others argue that cutting these scenes made SpongeBob safer, but also blander. That the show lost its edge. That sanitizing every uncomfortable moment turned it into just another forgettable cartoon. There's no consensus, but one thing is clear. The SpongeBob you grew up with is a compromised version. A version shaped by network fear, test audience reactions, and last-minute panic. And somewhere in Nickelodeon's archives, there's a version of SpongeBob that's stranger, darker, and more uncompromising than anything that ever made it to air. Deleted scenes exist in every TV show. That's normal, but SpongeBob's deleted content is unique because it reveals a pattern. The network consistently pulled back from anything too real, too dark, or too emotionally complex. Happy endings were mandated, sad resolutions were rewritten, realistic consequences were replaced with cartoon logic. And while that made SpongeBob more commercially successful, it also limited what the show could say. Early SpongeBob was beloved because it didn't talk down to kids. It had moments of genuine melancholy, existential dread, and emotional depth. But as the network tightened control, those moments disappeared, and the deleted scenes are proof of how much was lost. This isn't just about SpongeBob, it's about how corporations shape art, how creative visions get filtered through focus groups and profit margins. The scenes that were erased, they weren't erased because they were bad. They were erased because they were risky. And in the entertainment industry, risk is the first thing to go. These SpongeBob scenes were erased before they ever reached your screen. But there's one more type of censorship we haven't covered yet, and it's the most disturbing of all.